Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's nice to see you again this week, and I'm glad you could make it here live. We talk about legacy like it's a financial milestone, but anyone who's exited, successfully or not, I have been through both, they'll tell you legacy is emotional. It's how people feel when they say your name. It's the values that stick around when you're gone. And it's often the one thing that we don't plan for until it's too late. And it's one of the things that I notice my clients start to think about once we've pulled them out of the day to day. When they start to think about what's it going to mean that I was here? What do I want my legacy to be? Whether it's for my family, for my community, for the world at large, right? So today we're talking about how to intentionally shape your legacy while you still have time to lead it. I'm Jen. This is the Founders Briefing, and it's not a space for hype or hustle. It's a space for seasoned leaders to talk about what really matters, especially when it comes to the final season of ownership. Whether you're planning for an exit, succession, or simply just trying to shift your role so that you have more freedom, legacy is the thread that ties it all together. Remember, I said legacy might just be for your family. Legacy might be for your community or your church, your industry, the world at large. Whatever legacy means for you, it's something that's created intentionally. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I've got some notes here. I want to talk to you about the fact that legacy doesn't just happen. It's the cumulative result of your values, of your decisions, but most importantly, how you've made people feel. I want to share a concrete example of this. I serve on a board of directors, and we're hiring a new CEO, a new general manager for the company. And last Friday, we met with our recruiter, and we went over, I think it was 12 resumes that made it to the final cut before we do in-person interviews. And one of the things that stuck with me is that one of those applicants, their references, each one of those references said, I have never, ever heard him say a negative word about anybody else. I've never heard him talk poorly about somebody else. And I really reflected on that. What a high character trait, I guess you would say, to strive for. And it stuck with me. So as I said, legacy is built based on your values, your decisions, and how you've made people feel. And if you don't define it, your absence will. Right? They'll create something for you. This is also why I try to help my clients as we get them out of operations, begin to build a personal brand, right? This helps you determine what that legacy will be and helps you build it intentionally. So back to our list. There's 4 legacy levers you can influence now. The first one is the values that you reward, even when no one's watching. So you probably all have core values for the company. If you don't, please sit down and do that very intentionally, very thoughtfully. But I want you to ask yourself, what behavior gets celebrated when you yourself aren't in the room? So is there something different when you're not the one there? Do the team members that you have totally buy into the core values of the company? That's important. You should be hiring for those. So the values you reward when no one's watching. The second one are the systems that are set up in your business that reflect what you believe. The biggest one that jumps to mind is what customer care looks like, what customer satisfaction looks like, and how we measure that. Does our way of operating reflect our principles or just our preferences, right? Matthew Kelly is his name. He talks about, in one of his books, and I can't remember the name, I'll go back and look. He talks about minimalism. He talks about how as we as a society tend to look for the easiest route or the minimum we can do and still get credit for the work. And it's really easy for businesses to drift that way as well, especially when we get really busy. So being principled means sticking to those principles, whether it's, kind of the cliche ones like honesty, integrity, excellence, those kind of things. You probably have more specific examples for your core values, but are they drifting? Do you take a look at that? Is anyone else but you helping keep everything true? Right? All right, so let's talk about number 3, and that is the people who've raised you up. And I mean that very literally. I'm very choosy about who I work with. And so if I start to get the feeling that the people that have helped you get where you are today don't matter to you as human beings, and they're just a way for you to make a lot of cash, we're probably not going to be a good match for each other. But if you want to take care of the people that helped you get here, I'm 100% there for that. So who have you developed leadership? And if you've worked with me, we talk about leadership at all levels. Who leads because you've made space for them to grow, right? Not everybody will step into that space. Not everybody will see the possibility in themselves that you see in them. But who leads because you've made that space for them, because you've made that possible? That also is part of your legacy. And finally, what are the stories that people tell when you're no longer involved? So what is the story of how I led? Not just the numbers and the achievements and the awards. What was it like to work alongside you, to work alongside me, to accomplish those things? Right? What is that saying about people don't remember what you told them, but they remember how you made them feel? I butchered that terribly, I know. But that's a huge part of your legacy. And we've talked about the 4 levers. And just to recap, they're values, systems, people, and then the stories. But much of it centers around how you've made people feel. And you can do that a variety of ways, right? Just the four levers that we talked about demonstrate that. So listen, this is not about building a monument or some huge financial fund that becomes a charitable effort. You don't need to have that monument to build a legacy. You just need to be intentional about it, because the most meaningful legacy isn't what you built, it's what lasts after you're done building. And I'm going to say it again because it's that important. That legacy might be for your family, right? St. Teresa of Calcutta says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And that's part of what drives me. You don't get to do that if you're working 65 hours a week. So I want you to still have time to shape the legacy that you want it to be. And that's all about being intentional about it. There's a number of different ways you can do it, but it's the way you show up in your business and the way you make people feel. So we always have some field work for you to kind of internalize this and make it your own. Take 15 minutes this week, set it aside, and just ask yourself, and Stephen Covey did this, right? In 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think, back in the day, asked you to sit down and think about your funeral. This is a little less serious, I guess you'll say, but what do I hope they'll say about me when I'm no longer running the business? They can be your family, they can be your customers, they can be your team, they can be your vendors, they can be all of those things. But being intentional about beginning with the end in mind, as Covey says, is the best way then to start to reverse engineer. And you can ask yourself, am I leading in a way that makes that story true, right? Does what I do on a day-to-day basis lead to the story that I want them to tell? I'd love to have you share it in the group, because legacy really isn't what you leave behind, it's what you build into others. And it's such a huge part of why I do what I do that this is really near and dear to my heart. I'd love to have you share. I'd love to have a great discussion about this. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon.